quick video for you today on some kit that I never really understood before, but that I'm super digging now. So I'm going to be talking about the bino harness setup that I have and the stuff that I have in it. I have used bino harnesses before. I had an old, very old Mystery Ranch harness, and it seemed heavy and just cumbersome and clunky, and the straps just didn't fit well. It seemed like it was just in the way, and accessing the stuff inside of it was kind of a pain in the ass. It wasn't set up well for what I had in it, and I think that the access to the main pouch was also just kind of a pain in the butt. That particular model had more storage than I think that it should have for my uses, and so I could not resist the temptation to put more shit in there than I needed, which just added to the discomfort. So this is very different. This is the Stone Glacier bino harness, and pretty minimalist. It is very lightweight construction. It is so much more comfortable in just the strap design, the harness design, and the adjustability on there. Like I truly don't, like, I'm not bothered by this ever while I'm hiking around, if it's just this on, or even if it's a full pack on. So yeah, I like this thing, and there's a few features in it that I think are cool. So number one, the fabric that this is made of, I don't know if it's waterproof, but it is really water repellent, which my old harness was not. I noticed it doesn't really rain where I am, but snow and frost and morning dew going through high brush, I noticed, my pack straps are soaked, and all of everything on my chest would eventually get soaked through. And with the old harness, it was just Cordura, and it got soaked. It wasn't like pooling water inside of the bag, but it would soak through, and it would be perpetually wet, or it would stay wet for a long time, and just was not comfortable. This seems to shed water perfectly. So with, like, being slapped with branches and moving brush out of the way and just having them flick against, and all the drops falling off from that, the frost rubbing against this, it all just beads off. And the way this is sealed up, nothing is getting in here. So I like that. It doesn't get heavy and drenched and soaked. I also really like the accessibility. So I think all of these advertise that they are one-hand accessible, and I've tried a few. I think some of the newer ones are better, but my old one was awful. It was like I had to pull down on a button and then raise the thing up and tuck this hood behind, and then the hood would never stay tucked, and I was fighting it more than I was pleased with it. This is super easy though. It just pulls right down. It stays out of the way, and one hand I can close it back up, and it's closed, and it stays closed. So I love that. No magnets, no hardware for snaps or buttons or clicking, anything. It's just a little bit of shock cord tension, and that's perfect design, guys. Just minimalist. It's great. So I like that. No more front pocket, and not a lot of extra storage, so there is no temptation to put a bunch of silly shit in there to weigh down my front and have it be heavier and more uncomfortable than it needs to be. So I like that. I do have the two side pockets here, and they're just big enough for what I need. On one side pocket, I've just got the 2 diaphragm calls that I use. One of these is a very thin diaphragm, gives me the high chirps for calf calls. This is a thicker double diaphragm, gets the lower tones for like bugles or mature cow calls. So those slide in there and they're pretty secure. It's like a little bungee pocket, and it's deep enough those are never going to fall out. And I've noticed stuff doesn't fall in. That's pretty cool too. And with this pocket, it's just big enough for the one luxury item that I want to have on me. And it's usually just got like a handful of Jolly Ranchers in there with the cow calls. So other pocket, same size, just big enough for my Motorola Defy. This is the satellite communicator and like SOS beacon that I carry. Super happy with this unit. I've done a dozen trips with this, so I think every camping trip, every hiking trip, backpacking trip, and scouting trip since I've gotten it, this has been with me. I've only charged it the one time, and I have used it on every single trip. Now, keep in mind, I'm not keeping this on the entire time, but for at least one of these trips, and probably 2 others, I have accidentally left this on until the next time that I find it and turn it off, which I think that's something like, I don't know, a full day's worth of hiking where I've left this on. The batteries right now is at 68%, so that's with those days I accidentally left it on. And then all the other times where I do what I actually want to do, which is just turn it on, click the check-in button, which sends my wife a text of my GPS coordinates and just a quick text saying check in. And then the few other times where I've actually texted back and forth with her through this unit. So I like it. There's a little more stuff involved in people replying to you, and a little more restrictions on the quantity of text that you can send with this versus something like the Garmin unit. But I'm just not using these enough to justify like a mandatory contract plan that comes with the Garmin and the extra $300 and something that the Garmin costs over this, because these are on Amazon I think for $70. So $70 for this, and I think the plan that I got is like $60 for a year, and it's plenty to last me the entire year. So I've got that tethered. I also like that they have these little bungee loops here, so you can tether stuff that you want to sit in those pockets. So if I get lazy or it snags on something, it's not going to get lost on the trail. You definitely don't want to lose your SOS like GPS or satellite communicator. So that is in this pocket, and behind that is the other stuff that I really don't want to lose. I've got my my current hunting tags, zip ties for those tags, and a small space pin to scribble on it and attach it. So that's in this side pocket. And then we have the main pouch, which has these are the Sig Zulu 6 12x image stabilized binos. These have been a real game changer this year. So much easier to glass everything, whether I'm like posted up and I'm gonna just take 20 minutes 30 minutes to just glass a big range, a bunch of gullies, or if I just want to take a quick look. And I will say that the biggest benefit comes from those quick peeks that all of us take while we're hiking. We hear something, or maybe we see somewhere where we want to just look really quickly. The image stabilization on these is pretty badass. Every other bino that I've used, no matter the magnification, no matter the glass quality, unless I if I'm standing, unless I get two hands on the optic and like brace my elbows into my ribs, I cannot get anything stable enough to see clearly. I'm always, you know, whether it's being a little bit winded or just jittery enough where the image is blurry because it's shaking, and I cannot easily make out movement or the fine shapes that define an animal from a rock, you know, shaped like an animal, or a tree stump that looks like an elk. With these, absolutely so much easier. And I'll say that these aren't the highest quality glass. I've looked through binos that are far superior in light transmission, far more crisp like image through them, but the stability of these totally makes up for all that and then some. So I like these. In the bino world, these are not super expensive. They're $1,000. Now in my world, that's a pretty big spend, but I think it's justified. So, you know, the utility that I've gotten out of these just in this pre-season scouting, yeah, I'll stick with image stabilized binos from here on out. So yeah, that's these. You know, the harness comes with a nice single side tether. I like that. I think it's kind of silly when you have the dual side tethers. I don't need that. But yeah, it's a really lightweight tether. I don't think that I'm ever gonna break that. And when, you know, inevitably when I'm with the buddy that doesn't have binos, or recently the kiddo that wants to take a peek, it's really easy to just disconnect that and pass the binos off. So yeah, I like these Sig Zulu 6, the 12X. I think the 12X is the sweet spot for me. 16X, just playing around with a few of them. I think 16X is too much for glassing the far side of meadows that are like, you know, 100 to 200 yards away. It's too much magnification for me to do that easily. And 10X is, I think if I got the 10X in these, I would be just as happy. I think the 12X gives me just a little bit more capability to look at the really far away stuff. So recently I was looking at a range, so across a valley, and then like way up at the top of these far peaks, kind of like grassy meadows above tree line, and I was able to make out some rocks that I thought were elk, and then through these I could very obviously tell those aren't elk. And then from a different vantage, I was actually able to make out some cows that were bedded right in the tree line on the edge. That I was pretty blown away. I didn't spot them because of the shape. I spotted them because I was able to see them moving while they were bedded. So that's, you know, just like the head movement. And when I looked on Onyx to see how far away I was from that point, it was like 1.5 miles, something crazy like that. So these were specs with 12X, but it was clear enough and stable enough that I could tell the specks were moving, and they were organized in a pattern that were, yeah, it was elk. So big capability there for you tactical nerds. I think these are probably going to be the future for all of the spotting optics, whether you're hunting or people or animals. So yeah, these are great. I like this harness for the width and the height that it is. It seems perfect because I don't have to have an extra pouch here for my rangefinder. That's going to be pretty specific to these binos because they're narrow and tall. But this combo of the Vortex Impact plus the Sig Zulu 6 12s in the Stone Glacier harness. They fit perfectly next to each other. They don't click or rattle together, and the rangefinder actually stays put pretty well when I'm using the binos. So yeah, my previous harness, it was not tall enough for these, and then I've looked at the harnesses that were for the bigger glass, and these would kind of be drowning in that bigger harness. So this is a perfect fit. I'll tell you though, like this is the max, you know, the maximum size that you could put in this harness. So I think the 16s are just a little bit longer, if I'm not mistaken. I don't think that those would fit well in this harness. 12s fit well. In my previous harness, the mystery range harness that I had, I tried to use these Sig Zulus in them, and it fit, but it was such a pain in the butt because it was a tight squeeze and really I had to like yank down and use two hands to secure it, which is like, it's just not convenient. So this fits both of them well. On my previous harness, I needed that extra side pouch to hold the rangefinder. That was really inconvenient too, because the chest area, when you got a pack on, you're already fighting for space. So I was annoyed by the rangefinder. You know, I would just brush against it as I'm using hiking poles and moving around, and it would rub against the pack straps. I didn't like it. I want it slim and centered and minimalist, and this is checking all those boxes. So yeah, happy with the harness. I'm happy with the binos, and then the rangefinder. The Vortex Impact, it is pretty old school. I've had it for years. It just keeps kicking. It is not the nicest rangefinder at all. I think it's one of the lowest end, or the budget rangefinders. I think it's $300. Maybe it's cheaper now. But it works for everything that I would use it for. I don't need to glass stuff beyond 350 yards, because if something is beyond that, then I need to get closer to shoot it anyway. That 350 would be if everything was perfect, if all the stars aligned and the conditions were just perfect. Maybe I would take that shot. But 300 is more like the edge of my actual comfort rating with what I'm shooting. So I've gotten range returns on this, and like solid, sensical, like accurate data on ranging. I have gotten readings out at 500 with these at a, you know, kind of perfect conditions. It was a range in the plains, perfect daylight, good reflective surfaces that were perpendicular to me with targets in the berm. These worked for that. I think that you probably need to go with something a little bit more high end if you're going to do stuff at that distance all the time or beyond that distance. But these are working fine for me. My only complaint on these is the battery is one of these stupid rare batteries. It's a CR2, and I will say that most of the year these live in the door panel of my truck, and the hot and cold, the freezing, and then the 100-degree days, it's probably wearing that battery out. So I have gone to use these from the truck and had the battery dead. But throwing a new battery in here during the actual high use seasons, the hunting seasons, the battery lasts for all of that season, and then, you know, most of the rest of the year, and it dies sometime around the next summer. For the Sig Zulus, I think this is pretty cool. This just takes a single AA battery. I'm using the battery that came with these, and I don't know if they all come with them. This was a floor model that I bought, so still the same battery, and it's going strong after all of the trips so far. I don't know how long the battery life is on these, but I'll say that the use of the stabilization feature is minimal. It's not like you turn it on and have it sitting in your pack. You're getting out, and most of the time I'm glassing for 5 minutes at a time. I see something as I'm hiking, I see a good vantage point, and I look. I'm not really doing those long 2-hour glassing sessions that I hear dudes talking about. So maybe that would drain the battery, maybe it wouldn't, don't know. But for this, it's still the same battery, and I keep two spare batteries in the pack because 2 AA's weighs nothing. So yeah, easy. And easy battery. I wish all of the stuff were just common batteries. Like AA would be preferable, but CR123 is fine. These weird CR2s like are in here, or these proprietary super batteries that are in more and more gear are frustrating to me. I don't want to always have to use a power bank to charge all of these devices at the end of the day. It's already a pain when I have to charge my phone and my headlamp, right? I got one power bank and I've got to charge 2 objects. It's just a lot to think about when I'm already tired and busy doing other shit hiking. So yeah, that's kind of the setup, guys. I'm real happy with it, so I thought I'd share with you.